Karen crept onto the porch, eyeing the stack of packages. This was her third target on the block. With a quick glance around, she swiped the boxes and hurried back to her car. But as she peeled out, two unmarked vehicles pulled out behind her. Karen's heart raced. She had no idea the USPS agents had been watching her every move. Karen gripped the steering wheel, glancing anxiously in the rearview mirror as the nondescript SUVs tailed her through the neighborhood. She couldn't believe her luck had finally run out. For months, she'd been targeting homes on her daily delivery route, snatching packages from doorsteps with impunity. But this time, someone had caught on to her thievery. "Calm down, Karen," she muttered to herself, trying to steady her nerves. "Maybe they're just coincidence. They couldn't possibly know it was you." But as the vehicle stayed glued to her bumper, Karen's panic grew. She floored the gas, weaving recklessly through traffic, her heart pounding. The agents matched her speed, keeping close. "Damn it," she cursed, her knuckles white on the wheel. She couldn't outrun them forever. Karen scanned the road ahead, searching for an escape. Up ahead, an exit ramp beckoned. Without hesitation, she jerked the wheel and swerved off the highway, the SUVs following in hot pursuit. The ramp led to a narrow, residential street. Karen gunned it, blowing through stop signs as she desperately tried to lose her tail. But the agents were relentless, their sirens blaring as they closed in. Gritting her teeth, Karen spotted an alley up ahead, her last chance. She whipped the car into the alley, tires squealing. The agents followed, their SUVs barely fitting through the tight space. Karen's breathing was ragged as she scanned for an exit, any way to get free. But the alley was a dead end, a chain-link fence blocking the way. Panic-stricken, Karen slammed on the brakes, the car fishtailing to a stop. She threw it in reverse, but the agents had her boxed in. With nowhere left to run, she watched helplessly as the two SUVs pulled up on either side, effectively trapping her. The car doors flew open, and two agents emerged, their faces set in grim determination as they approached Karen's vehicle. She stared ahead, her mind racing. This was it. Her criminal streak had finally come to an end. As the agents neared her car, Karen braced herself for the inevitable. The two agents approached Karen's car, their expressions hard and unyielding. Karen's heart pounded as she watched them draw closer, her mind racing with fear and desperation. This was it, the end of the line for her brazen package theft operation. As the agents reached her door, Karen steeled herself, preparing for the worst. But to her surprise, they did not immediately yank her from the car or slap the cuffs on. Instead, one of the agents leaned down, his face mere inches from hers. "Karen Wilkins, we've been expecting you," he said, his voice stern. "You're under arrest for mail theft. Step out of the vehicle, slowly, with your hands where I can see them." Shaking, Karen complied, her hands trembling as she opened the door and emerged into the alley. The other agent quickly patted her down, confiscating the stolen packages from her backseat. How did you know it was me?" Karen stammered, her mind reeling. "We've been watching you for weeks," the first agent replied, his eyes narrowed. "You've been targeting homes on your daily delivery route, haven't you? Snatching packages right off people's doorsteps." Karen felt her stomach drop. All this time, she'd thought she was getting away with it. But the USPS had been one step ahead of her the entire time. "We've had our eye on you, Karen," the agent continued. "You're a brazen one, I'll give you that. But your luck's run out. Time to pay the piper." With that, the agents swiftly cuffed Karen's wrists behind her back and led her to one of the waiting SUVs. As they shoved her into the backseat, Karen's mind raced, her heart pounding. How could this have happened? She was supposed to be the clever one, the one who always got away. But as the vehicle pulled away, sirens blaring, Karen realized her reign of package theft was over. The USPS agents had been watching her all along, and now she was headed straight to jail. The ride to the police station was a blur for Karen. Her mind spun with a whirlwind of emotions: disbelief, fear, rage. How could this have happened? She had been so careful, so meticulous in covering her tracks. But somehow the USPS agents had seen through her scheme the entire time. As the SUV pulled into the station, Karen's heart sank. This was it, the end of the line for her illicit package theft operation. No more easy money, no more getting away with her crimes. She was about to face the full consequences of her actions. The agents hauled Karen out of the backseat and marched her inside, her wrists still cuffed behind her back. She kept her head down, refusing to make eye contact with the officers and staff who gawked at the spectacle. All she could think about was the crushing weight of her impending downfall. Once inside, the agents led Karen to an interrogation room and sat her down at a metal table, her hands still bound. She stared straight ahead, her mind racing. What was going to happen to her now? Would they throw the book at her? How much jail time was she facing? After a few agonizing minutes, the lead agent entered the room and took a seat across from Karen. He folded his arms and fixed her with a steely gaze. "All right, Karen, let's start with how this all began," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "When did you first start stealing packages off people's doorsteps?" Karen swallowed hard, her mouth suddenly dry. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, feigning innocence. "I'm an honest, hard-working USPS employee. I would never." The agent held up a hand, cutting her off. "Save it, Karen. We have you dead to rights. The packages we found in your car are enough to convict you. So let's skip the song and dance. I want the truth." Karen's resolve crumbled in the face of the agent's unwavering gaze. Defeated, she slumped in her chair and sighed. "It started about 6 months ago," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was having money troubles, bills piling up. Then I noticed all these unattended packages on my route, just waiting to be taken. It was easy money, and no one seemed to be the wiser." The agent nodded, unsurprised. "And how many packages would you say you stole over that time?" Karen cringed, the reality of her actions crashing down on her. I don't know. Dozens, maybe more. I lost count." "I see." The agent leaned back in his chair, his expression hardening. "Well, Karen, I hope you enjoyed your little crime spree, because it's about to come to a very abrupt end. You're looking at some serious jail time for this." Karen felt the blood drain from her face. Jail time. The weight of her predicament finally hit her full force, and she suddenly found it difficult to breathe. "No, please," she pleaded, her voice shaking. I can't go to jail. There has to be something I can do." "Save it," the agent interrupted, his tone unsympathetic. "You made your bed, Karen. Now it's time to lie in it." With that, he stood and headed for the door, leaving Karen alone with her crushing guilt and the terrifying prospect of an extended stint behind bars. Karen sat alone in the interrogation room, her mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions. Fear, guilt, and a growing sense of dread swirled within her as the full weight of her predicament sank in. She was facing serious jail time for her brazen package theft scheme, a reality that was becoming increasingly difficult to accept. As the minutes ticked by, Karen's panic only intensified. She couldn't bear the thought of being locked up, of losing her freedom and the life she had worked so hard to build. The prospect of trading her comfortable existence for a cold, sterile prison cell made her stomach churn. Desperate for a way out, Karen racked her brain for any shred of leverage she could use. Maybe she could cut a deal, plead for leniency, or perhaps she could somehow convince the agents that this was all a misunderstanding, that she was an upstanding citizen who had simply made a terrible mistake. But as she replayed the confrontation in the alley over and over in her mind, Karen knew her options were dwindling fast. The agents had her dead to rights. The stolen packages in her car were damning evidence that would be impossible to refute. She'd been caught red-handed, and there was no escaping the consequences. Karen's breathing quickened as the reality of her situation fully sank in. She had always prided herself on her cunning and ability to stay one step ahead, but in the end, her criminal ambition had been her undoing. The USPS agents had been watching her every move, waiting patiently to spring their trap. And now, her reign of package theft was over. Just then, the door to the interrogation room swung open, and the lead agent re-entered, a grim expression on his face. Karen's heart raced as he approached the table and took a seat across from her. "All right, Karen, here's how this is going to go down," the agent began, his tone no nonsense. "We've compiled a pretty airtight case against you. The stolen packages, your confession, it's all there. You're looking at some serious jail time, my friend." Karen's mouth went dry as she listened, her palms sweating. "Please, is there anything I can do?" she pleaded, her voice small and desperate. I can't go to prison. Can't we work something out?" The agent regarded her stoically, unmoved by her plea. "I'm afraid that's not really up to me, Karen. You made your choice when you started stealing those packages. Now you have to face the consequences." As the agent's words sank in, Karen felt a profound sense of hopelessness wash over her. She had gambled, and she had lost. Big time. There would be no easy way out, no last-minute reprieve. Her fate was sealed. Defeated, Karen slumped in her chair, the fight draining from her. She stared at the agent, her eyes brimming with tears. "What's going to happen to me?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The agent looked at Karen with a mix of pity and resolve. "Well, that all depends on how you want to proceed from here," he said evenly. "You've got a couple of options." Karen leaned forward, her cuffed hands gripping the edge of the table. "Options? What do you mean?" she asked, a glimmer of hope flickering in her eyes. "Look, Karen, we both know you're in a tough spot here," the agent continued. "The evidence against you is pretty damning. But if you cooperate fully and agree to testify against the other members of your criminal operation, we might be able to work out a plea deal that could significantly reduce your sentence." Karen's heart raced. "Other members? What are you talking about?" she asked, confusion etched on her face. The agent held up a hand. "Don't play dumb with me, Karen. We know this wasn't a solo gig. You were part of a larger network of package thieves, all working the same delivery routes. And we want the bigger fish." Karen shook her head vehemently. No, that's not true. I was acting alone, I swear. There's no one else involved." The agent leaned back in his chair, his expression hardening. "Well, that's too bad, Karen. Because if you're not willing to cooperate and provide us with the information we need, you're looking at the maximum sentence, several years in federal prison." Karen felt the blood drain from her face. Several years?" she stammered, her mind reeling. "But I can't go to prison. There has to be something else I can do." "The choice is yours, Karen," the agent said, his tone unyielding. "You can either take the deal and potentially walk away with a much lighter sentence, or you can stubbornly maintain your innocence and face the full consequences. Either way, the ball is in your court." Karen's mind raced as she considered her options. On one hand, the prospect of spending years behind bars was absolutely terrifying. But on the other, the thought of betraying her alleged co-conspirators made her stomach churn. She had always prided herself on her loyalty and discretion. As the seconds ticked by, Karen's conflict intensified. She knew the agent was right. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and she'd be a fool not to take the deal. But the idea of snitching on others, of turning state's witness, went against every fiber of her being. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Karen made her decision. Squaring her shoulders, she looked the agent dead in the eye. "All right, I'll do it," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll testify against the others. Just, please, get me out of this with as little jail time as possible." The agent nodded, a hint of satisfaction in his expression. "Very well, Karen. Let's get started then. Karen sat in the cramped interview room, her mind racing as the USPS agent across the table grilled her for details about the alleged package theft ring she was a part of. She had reluctantly agreed to cooperate, knowing full well that her only chance at avoiding a lengthy prison sentence was to provide the information they wanted. But the prospect of betraying her accomplices, if they even existed, filled her with a deep sense of unease. Snitching went against everything Karen believed in. She had always prided herself on her loyalty and discretion, traits that had served her well during her criminal exploits. Now she was being forced to compromise those core values in order to save herself. "All right, Karen, let's start from the beginning," the agent said, his pen poised over a notepad. "Who else was involved in this scheme with you?" Karen swallowed hard, her palms sweating. I told you there wasn't anyone else," she insisted, trying to sound convincing. "It was just me, taking packages from porches on my route. No one else was involved." The agent's brow furrowed as he studied her, his expression skeptical. "Come on, Karen, you and I both know that's not true. We have evidence of a larger network operating in this area. You're part of it, whether you want to admit it or not." Karen felt her heart race. "But I'm telling you the truth," she pleaded. "I was doing this all on my own. No one else knew what I was up to." The agent leaned back in his chair, his gaze unwavering. "Look, Karen, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. If you cooperate and give us the names of your accomplices, we might be able to work out a deal that keeps you out of prison. But if you keep stonewalling us, you're going to be looking at the maximum sentence. The choice is yours." Karen's mind raced as she weighed her options. On one hand, the thought of betraying her alleged co-conspirators made her skin crawl. But on the other, the prospect of spending years behind bars was absolutely terrifying. She had to protect herself, no matter the cost. Steeling her nerves, Karen finally spoke up. "Okay, fine," she said, her voice shaking. There was one other person involved. My neighbor, Tina. She was the one who helped me case the neighborhoods and identify the best targets." The agent's eyes widened slightly as he scribbled down the name. "Tina? Huh. And what was her role in all of this?" Karen swallowed hard, hating herself for what she was about to do. She would drive the getaway car while I grabbed the packages, and we'd divvy up the spoils afterwards. It was a whole operation, I swear." The agent nodded, his expression unreadable. "I see. And how long has this been going on?" Karen hesitated, then sighed heavily. "About 6 months, maybe a little longer. We were making a lot of money, but it just got to be too much, you know. I couldn't keep it up." I see." The agent jotted down a few more notes, then fixed Karen with a penetrating stare. "All right. Well, this is certainly helpful information. I'll pass it along to the prosecutors, and we can see about getting you a more favorable plea deal." Karen felt a mixture of relief and guilt wash over her. She had betrayed her neighbor, her supposed accomplice, all to save her own skin. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but in the end, her self-preservation had won out. As the agent left the room, Karen sat alone, her mind swirling with a maelstrom of emotions. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. In the days that followed Karen's damning confession, the USPS agents wasted no time in tracking down her alleged accomplice, Tina. With the information Karen had provided, it didn't take long for them to locate the woman and bring her in for questioning. Tina, a middle-aged single mother, was completely blindsided when the agents showed up at her doorstep. She had no idea her neighbor Karen was being investigated for package theft, let alone that she was about to be implicated as a co-conspirator. "I don't know what you're talking about," Tina protested, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "I've never been involved in any kind of criminal activity. You've got the wrong person." But the agents were undeterred, presenting her with the evidence they had gathered, Karen's confession, the stolen packages found in her car, and surveillance footage that appeared to show the two women working together. Tina's stomach churned as the reality of the situation sank in. She was being accused of aiding and abetting a brazen package theft scheme, a crime that could land her in prison for years. The thought of losing her freedom, of being ripped away from her young daughter, was absolutely terrifying. "Please, you have to believe me," Tina pleaded, her voice quivering. "I had no idea what Karen was doing. She's my neighbor, not my partner in crime." The agents listened impassively, their expressions unreadable. "That's not what Karen told us," one of them replied, his tone matter of fact. "She claims you were an active and willing participant in this operation, driving the getaway car and splitting the profits." Tina's heart sank as she realized the gravity of the situation. Karen had betrayed her, throwing her under the bus in a desperate attempt to save herself. The woman she had trusted as a neighbor and casual friend had turned out to be her worst enemy. Rage and betrayal burned in Tina's chest as the agents continued to press her for information. How could Karen do this to her? And why had she chosen to single Tina out as her partner in crime? "I swear, I'm innocent," Tina cried, tears streaming down her face. "Karen's lying, all of it. I had nothing to do with any of this." But the agents remained unmoved, their suspicions only deepening. Tina could see the writing on the wall. Without any evidence to corroborate her story, her word was meaningless against Karen's damning testimony. As the reality of her predicament sank in, Tina felt a profound sense of hopelessness wash over her. She was about to be dragged into a criminal case, all because of her neighbor's deceit. And now, with her life hanging in the balance, she knew she had to find a way to fight back against the false accusations. Mustering her remaining resolve, Tina fixed the agents with a steely gaze. "All right, fine. If you want the truth, I'll give it to you. But you'd better be ready to listen, because I'm about to blow this whole case wide open." Tina's declaration caught the USPS agents off guard, their eyebrows raising in surprise. They exchanged a glance, then the lead agent nodded, gesturing for her to continue. "All right, here's what really happened," Tina began, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and determination. "Karen and I have been neighbors for years, and we've always been friendly with each other. But lately, she's been acting strange, withdrawn, secretive, and always rushing out the door at odd hours." The agents listened intently as Tina laid out her side of the story. She explained how she had noticed a pattern of suspicious activity from Karen, with packages frequently disappearing from porches on their street. Concerned, Tina had confronted her neighbor, only to be met with a flimsy excuse about a home improvement project. "I knew something wasn't right, so I started keeping an eye on her," Tina continued. "And that's when I saw her, creeping up to people's front doors, grabbing packages, and hurrying back to her car. I was horrified, but I didn't know what to do." The agents leaned forward, their attention rapt. "And why didn't you report her to the authorities right away?" one of them asked. Tina sighed heavily. "I don't know. I guess I was just in shock. I mean, this was my neighbor, someone I thought I could trust. I couldn't believe she was capable of something like this." She paused, her expression hardening. "But then you people showed up, accusing me of being her partner in crime. That's when I knew I had to speak up and tell the truth. I had nothing to do with Karen's thefts, and I'm not going to let her drag me down with her." The agents exchanged another glance, their faces inscrutable. After a moment, the lead agent cleared his throat. "Well, Miss Tina, this certainly paints a different picture. If what you're saying is true, then it would appear that Karen has been less than truthful with us." Tina nodded emphatically. "It's the absolute truth, I swear. I'm the victim here, not the accomplice." The agent considered this for a moment, then stood up. "All right. Well, we'll need to investigate this further. In the meantime, you're free to go, Miss Tina, but don't leave town. We may need to follow up with you again." As the agents ushered Tina out of the interrogation room, A sense of relief and vindication washed over her. She had stood her ground and refused to be implicated in Karen's crimes, and it seemed to have paid off. Now, the tables had turned, and the USPS was forced to re-examine the case against her. Meanwhile, back at the police station, Karen sat alone in her cell, her mind racing. She had thought she had played the system perfectly, using Tina as a scapegoat to save herself. But now, it appeared her former neighbor had seen through her scheme and blown the lid off her carefully constructed lies. As the reality of her predicament sank in, Karen felt a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach. Her carefully laid plans had backfired, and she was now facing the full brunt of the law's wrath. The sweet taste of freedom she had once savored was now a distant memory, replaced by the bitter sting of defeat and the looming specter of a long prison sentence. In the end, Karen's greed and deceit had been her undoing. The USPS agents had been watching her all along, and her reign of package theft had finally come to a crashing halt. As she sat alone in her cell, she knew that the only person she had to blame was herself.